Welcome back to the National Post Politics Bureau, where we are talking about Donald Trump and tariffs. Again, we have Brian Lee Crowley here from the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, and we had kind of a diplomatic situation this week where Doug Ford and Donald Trump were actually seemingly negotiating in public on how these tariffs are going to come down. Trump was threatening to double his aluminum and steel tariffs on Canada. Doug Ford was threatening a surcharge on electricity that came into place on Monday. Brian, it's been kind of a crazy week. What do you make of all this, Doug Ford being the main character here?
Well, you see, I think when you're negotiating with someone like Donald Trump, or indeed anybody, there's two questions you want to ask. What do you want out of the negotiation, and who's representing you? Yeah. And I think we're in a situation where we don't have someone representing Canada as a whole at the negotiating table with Donald Trump, because we've got this political upheaval in Ottawa. Yeah. We've got somebody who's a new leader of the Liberal Party, Mark Carney. He's not Prime Minister yet. Justin Trudeau hasn't left. There's been terrible confusion. And then into that vacuum has rushed several premiers, Doug Ford in this particular instance, but we've certainly heard from Danielle Smith about energy exports, et cetera, et cetera. And what this communicates, I think, to Donald Trump and the American administration is weakness on our part. We don't know who's negotiating on our behalf. We don't know what we're asking for. Now, Donald Trump is communicating all sorts of uncertainty about what he wants, but that's his problem. We are the ones who are on the other side of that negotiating table. And, you know, for example, for Doug Ford to say, yes, let's start renegotiating CUSMA, what mandate, what authority does he have to negotiate? Premiers aren't even allowed under, the Canadian Constitution. They don't have any role in international trade. Yeah. Certainly they can advise the federal government, but I think our real problem right now is the confusion and lack of clarity in Ottawa, which is having all kinds of knock-on effects in our relationship and negotiations with Donald Trump.
Yeah. What do you make of the tenor of the negotiations? Because Doug Ford, I think, came on pretty strong this week, and we've seen the other side of that, which is Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta, who has taken more of a lighter touch. I don't think we know for sure what the outcome is yet, so it's hard to judge the performances because, with Trump, you never quite know what's going to happen. Do you have a sense of what the best strategy is with this?
Well, I think the place to start is, you have to think about Donald Trump and who he is as a personality, as a negotiating partner. The very worst thing you can do is communicate weakness. Mm-hmm. What I think a lot of people, Doug Ford would be an example, what a lot of people are forgetting is the first one to lose his temper loses the argument. And Doug Ford, I think, is quite understandably getting caught up in the emotion of the moment. And Canadians are angry, and rightly so. We feel disrespected, we feel ill-used. We feel, that the Americans have invited us into a continental relationship, which we have enthusiastically embraced, and now they're sort of pulling the rug out from under us and saying, we asked you to make yourselves vulnerable to us, and now we're going to get you. Yeah. So all of that I understand, but I think we have to be bigger than that. I think we have to keep our eye on the end game. And for that to happen, what you want is to let Trump, do his thing, get all, exaggerated and loud and bullying and so on, and just keep saying, thank you for your comments, Mr. President. Now let's get back to the issues at hand. We are always going to be, I'm sorry to say, we're always going to be the weaker partner. You think about the fact that Canada is one of the most export-dependent countries in the world. We export roughly half of everything that the private sector makes in Canada. This is a huge degree of dependence on exports, and 75 to 80% of those go to the United States. Right. America barely depends on international trade overall for about 25% of its GDP. and only a small fraction of that goes to Canada. So they're never going to feel the same vulnerability to Canada that we feel to the United States.
Yeah.
So we have to be the bigger party in the sense of being the adults in the room. We can't afford to let our emotions run away with us.
Okay, well, we'll have a lot of chances to test that, I'm sure, in the upcoming weeks. Thank you, Brian, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.